A gute Woche, a good Yom Tov. We're celebrating Yitis Kislev. So we'll start off with something about the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe's put mainly three Sforim. We have the Alter Rebbe who published the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe who wrote the Shulchan Aruch, and then the Siddur. And like the Rambam, we have the Rambam wrote a Sefer on Halacha, the Mishnah Torah, and he has the Meri Nevuchim, which is in the Machshava. The Alter Rebbe also has these two Sforim, the Tanya, which is in Machshava, and the Shulchan Aruch, which is the Halacha. But then the Alter Rebbe has a Chibur of the Siddur, which is a combination. It's Alpi Pnimius Torah and Alpi Halacha. It's somewhere in between Nigla and Nister. But let's take a word here. Someone asked me this week, someone from Toronto, and he asks the question that in the Siddur we have, in the Bracha Slach Lonu, we have the wording is Mechel Lonu. Take a regular Siddur, an Ashkenaz Siddur or Sfard Siddur, so it's Mechol Lonu or Mechal Lonu. So he's asking why isn't the Chabad Siddur is the wording Mechel Lonu. So what you have on the left of the screen is from a Siddur which is about 30 years before the Alter Rebbe, perhaps a bit more. A Siddur-based tefillah of Reb Zalman Henna, and I believe the Alter Rebbe used this is very meduic Siddur, very accurate Siddur. He was like a master of diktuk in his time, contemporary of the Baal Shem Tov kind of, and Reb Yaakov Emden was a major opponent of his. Then there a lot of polemics between the two. At any rate, this is the Siddur which I got this from. And then we have here at the bottom of the page on the left, we have here the from the same Siddur, from the Alter Rebbe Siddur from which is found a few years ago in the library in Moscow. This is of the first print of the Alter Rebbe Siddur from the Tovkov Samach Gimel. Okay, so what we're seeing here on the right of your page is, so again, the question is, why Mechol Lonu rather than Mechol Lonu? And the answer is, it's very much Alpi Kabbalah. And that is that Mechol Lonu equals a gematria of Hashem's name. We have Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, that's 26. And if Yud Kei Vav Kei, as you can see over here, is spelled Yud Vav Dal Hey Yud Vav Yud Vav Hey Yud, that equals 72. So we've got here a Yud Kei Vav Kei, that's the Shem Ayin base. Now Slach, Samach, Lamed, and Ches is 96. That would be Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Ayin base, plus the Yud Kei Vav Kei is simple. So that's 26 plus 72 would bring you to 98. So that's what he's saying here on the first line. That Slach is a remes to the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. Now let's take a look at the Shem Ekyeh. I remember hearing a tape that ever said, instead of say Ehyeh, he said Ekyeh. So that you take a look here at the word Ekyeh, and then we look at the word Mechol Lonu, or let's go first, Mechol Lonu. Mechol is 40, 48, 54, 84. 84 plus now is now 114, 164, 170. So Mechol Lonu is 170. And let's take a look at those words, Aleph, Hey, and then Yud and the Hey. So that's, Aleph is 111, and then the two Heys is 15 and 15, so that's brings you to 30, and Yud is 50, so 50 and 111, sorry, Yud is 20, and Hey is 50, that's 50, 50 and 100, so that brings you to 161. Then count the letters. Aleph, Lamed, Pei, Hey, Yud. Hey, Yud. Yud, Vav, Dalet, Hey, Yud. So you've got here, in the Shem, you've got 10 letters. So the gematria of these four words is 161. Then there's actually 10 letters, that brings it to 171. So that is the parallel of Mechailonu, which is 170, Imakola is 771. Basically, what we have here is clearly a Kabbalah, how do you say, intervention. That we want to have here in this Slachlonu, we want to have a remes to the Shem Yudke Vovke and the Shem Eye, and therefore we will have Mechailonu rather than Mechalonu. And so that's to bring out to share with us that the gematria. That's the purpose of this spelling. Why is the Shem Eya got to do with Kapora? That I looked around and didn't find clearly. Possibly you have the idea when Hashem says to Moshe, Eya, Asher Eya, I will be with them in moments of difficulty. So then that possibly relates to the concept of Kapora. I want to just bring in another thing, since we're talking about words in diuk in the davening, and this is something which I notice many people slip up. Goimel chasorin tovim koine hakoil. The vov is not missing by mistake. The vov of v'koine, which, as you can see in the previous quote over here from the Zalman Heno Siddur, v'koine, that's in standard in Nusach Ashkenaz is v'koine, and I think Nusach Sfard also. And yet we have here koine. There's the Kabbalah here is that the word v'koine or koine is a remes to one of the 13 attributes of Rachamim, of Hashem's mercy and compassion, the last one being v'nake. So in the back of the Shulchan Aruch, Chelik Chaim, or Chelik Aleph of Chaim, there's a whole page of comments on the Nusach HaTfilah from the Vilna Gaon. And there he says it should be dafke v'koine, because he doesn't want to take the vov, as in koine. The vov here is a vowel. It's not, you don't hear it. It's not a consonant. Therefore, the Gra doesn't want to count that into the remes of v'nake. The Alter Rebbe doesn't follow that. The Alter Rebbe says a vov, which is also just a vowel, can also make up the remozim. And therefore, the vov of koine, the vowel vov of koine, makes it correspond to v'nake. That's fine, and that's the same thing which is done over here. The mechoil lonu is taking the vov of mechoil, and this is not the Alter Rebbe, this is really from the Arizal. The vov of mechoil makes up the gematria of 170, so it's okay to use the vovs, the vowel letters, to make up the gematria when necessary. Al Kabbalah. Okay, that's just a word on the behind the curtains of the Siddur. Let's take a look what someone's asking. Someone's asking, it's worrying that we change bits of tefillah to alter the correct Hebrew to fit in with the gematrias. Okay, yeah, if it would be a massive intervention, okay, it's a very minor intervention. And I was looking this week, you have some, I pointed here in the title of this thing, that line over there is called a makaf. That is when you have two words which are joining together. That's not in the Sefer Torah, but in Dikdut you have this makaf which joins two words together, and it will take the vowel. So really the original word is mechoil, but when there is a kind of a shortening of, it's the shortening of the space. Mecholonu, the makaf then it takes away the oi and diminishes it to o. So that's the makaf has reduced it to mecholonu. So mecholonu is not incorrect. It's just as if it is given a bit more emphasis. Like we have also in the variations in davening, kol hachayim, chol hachayim, al kol ma shebaroso, kol ma shebaroso. So you sometimes have this change. It depends a little bit on how the sing-song of the words is. Like we have actually even lahavdol in English, is it advertisement or advertisement? It can be the same word, and it's in different dialects. It's going to be the emphasis slightly different. So here the dialect which has been chosen here is to conform to the Kabbalah. Okay, let's go on to something which is halacha l'maisa. Tonight we switch to the Saint Talamot Livracha, and many people ask the question. It's one of the only things in our calendar which we follow the civil calendar rather than the calendar, which is the Jewish calendar. So the reason for switching to start asking for rain is obviously got to do with the need for rain, and the need for rain goes according to the seasons. The sun, the cycle of the sun has got 4 quarters. You've got the solstices, where you've got the longest day, the shortest day, and then you've got the equinoxes, which is where the day and night are equal. And these are called in Hebrew, they're called the Tkufos, the 4 Tkufos. So you've got Tkufas Oviv, Tkufas, then you've got Tkufas Tammuz, Tkufas Tishrei, which is the, I think it's called the vernal equinox. And then we've got Tkufas Tevis, which is, I think it's called the, I'm perhaps mixing up. Then you've got where it's going into the depth of winter. The rule for switch over for Saint Alamoto is 60 days from Tkufas Tishrei. In other words, from the equinox around Yom Kippur time, around Sukkot time, from that equinox, 60 days hence, that would be the time to switch over. Now, you might start looking at the calendar, look at when the equinox was, and say it doesn't actually fit for tonight, which is the 6th of December. The explanation for this is actually, if you look at a sefer from 200 years ago, you'll see it's talking about the 4th of December or 5th of December, and it keeps on creeping later and later. The reason for this is because the actual cycle of a year is 365 days, and how's it go? It's something about whether it's a full 6 hours or just a little bit less than 6 hours, and because of that slight inaccuracy, that's what's called the Skufa of Shmuel, as distinct from Rav Ado or the astronomical one. There's a slight margin where the calendar which we're following is a little bit longer, and that how you say discrepancy has accumulated over the years, and therefore the beginning of Tkufa of saying the Saint Alamoto has become gradually later and later in the winter. Someone made a calculation that if that in 40,000 years we'll be saying the Saint Alamoto Erev Pesach. Where's Hashem? Okay. This follows Bavel, obviously. We can manage with rain much earlier. We do get rain much earlier, but everywhere outside Eretz Yisrael just follows Bavel. And that's what also interesting, that even the southern hemisphere also follow Minhag Bavel regardless. Let's move on. Someone's asking that then we have a worry that Pesach might be not in Chag HaOviv, not in the Chodesh Aviv, you mean? Yeah, that is a concern, and that we'd better have the Geula Shlema and Sanhedrin coming back to sort out these discrepancies. Right, let's move on. Someone asks, this is a shaila because of the lockdowns, people are asking the shaila about lighting a menorah in a studio to be broadcast on national media. May you say the brachas as normal. So I want to address this. The public menorah is relatively a new minhag, which goes back, let's say, from about 40 years ago, 45 years ago. And the various people have written about this and questioning it. I've written about this in the Sefer Nesivim B'Zdei HaShlichus, Volume Aleph, extensively, basically to explain that we have the concept of the menorah lit in shul, and the poskim go to pains to explain that no one is yotze from the menorah in shul. So why are you lighting it in shul? So one of the reasons they say is persuminis. Actually, there are numerous Rishonim who say that the menorah is lit in shul for the benefit of those people who, for some reason, whether because they don't have the money, or they don't have the house, or they don't have the seichel, whatever it may be, they may not be lighting a menorah at home. And like this, they will be yotze with the menorah lit in shul. And now, before you start jumping up and down in protest, the question is, the very person who lights the menorah in shul, he has to go home and light menorah again with a bracha. But he has to make a light again at home. It's not yotze. And so therefore one has to understand a bit more subtle over here. It says in the Gemara, Horoya Neir Chanukah, Mavorech Shosun Nisan. A person who's walking in the street and he sees a Neir Chanukah. So Rashi says in the Gemara in Bar Shabbos, It means a person who doesn't have, for some reason, he doesn't have a menorah, he doesn't even have a house, and he sees a Ner Chanukah. So he is not fulfilling his chiyuv, his personal obligation, but he is participating in the Persumanissa experience. He's seeing a menorah, he's remembering the Inyan of Chanukah. So should we say, on the receiving end, but he can make a bracha. What seems to be by the menorah in shul, that since the people who see the menorah will be on the receiving end of Persumanissa, we are able to make a bracha on such a thing. So we are allowed to make a bracha to provide the those who are out there, that they should be on the receiving end of the Persumanissa. So therefore, in a shul, you light a menorah, and people, there's no one there who's not going to light a home. Okay, we'll say it's because of minhag. But if there's someone there, so he's yoitz to the union of Persumanissa. Though that same reason, that same logic is valid for the menorah in the public square, the only difference is that the Meforshim say that the lighting of menorah in the shul is zeichel mikdash. You can pick holes in that one, because what about tonight? Every day the zeichel mikdash should be every day, but be that it may. One of the things that the zeichel mikdash is which side of the shul you should light it. Why we light it in the shul in the morning by halal as well as by night. Because they lit in the morning also, according to many Meforshim. But basically the menorah in public spaces has got the precedent is this, the menorah which is lit in shul, and that is for the very same logic, because there are people out there who are going to see the menorah, and they will be exposed to the experience of Persumanissa. Therefore, we can make a bracha. This is all very well if you're talking about a menorah, which is taka with flames, and with the wick and a flame, you can make a bracha on that. But here, if someone will be turning up his computer, and he'll see that in this place they are lighting a menorah, but he's seeing it through the screen. He can't make a bracha shas on this another say no over a screen. It doesn't seem right. And as a result, the person is making menorah. So I've told people, if you want to make a thing on Zoom, to light menorah at home or in your shul, if you have a shul, and light menorah there and put that on the screen. But in a studio where there are no other people there, so the only exposure is via the media, so make a bracha without Hashem's name. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. The chazonis is okay. You can say it with chazonis. Don't deprive the chazonim of their broadcasting, their, how do you say, but no, a bracha shouldn't be made in a studio. So now I want to look at another thing. Looks like it's not on the list of questions, but fine, doesn't matter. It's on the screen. What about lighting menorah with a gas lamp? Beautiful, these gas lamps that you buy from camping shops. Very beautiful light. It almost looks like a fluorescent light. As you say, it's too good. It's too good. It's not okay as far as the Aniya's diet. It's not okay for lighting menorah. But the reason is, if you take about this kind of lamp, you'll see that inside there is a little bag. There's a cloth bag which surrounds the flame. There's a small flame. You don't see the flame. The flame warms up the inside of the bag. The bag is impregnated with particles, which when they become hot, they start glowing. So the gas lamp, you don't see a flame. You're seeing glowing particles. And that doesn't count for lighting the menorah. And therefore that's not valid, although it would have been very convenient, but it's not valid for lighting menorah, Lania's deity. I know some people say it's okay, but I need to be, as far as I understand, it's not okay. Okay, the next thing which we have on the list is about a menorah in a public place. So someone's lit menorah in his own salon, in his dining room with his family, and then he's got his front of his house is onto the street. So this is the picture is taken during the daytime, but he wants to light the menorah again on the street, so the passers-by should be able to should be able to see the menorah. Very nice. So he asked me that if that's okay. So I said, actually, if you first light the menorah outside, you fulfilled your mitzvah. And there's no point of saying a bracha again when you go inside. In other words, the original mitzvah was to light al pesach beis bachutz, to light menorah outside. If you've lit your menorah in your front yard, so you've done the mitzvah as it was in the original mitzvah, and there's no justification for you to go back into your dining room and light menorah again. On the other hand, if you first light menorah inside, so you've done the menorah for yourself. You haven't fulfilled the idea of Pesum and Issa. In other words, if you light the menorah outside, you've done Pesum and Issa, and you've fulfilled your personal chiyuv. If you first do your personal chiyuv, you missed out on Pesum and Issa, then you are allowed to light it again outside in order to project the idea of Pesum and Issa, so that people should pass by. He asked whether you need to have a minyan. So actually, in the Mishnah Berurah, he brings from Rabbi Yaakov Emden on a Friday. When do you light menorah in shul on Friday? So normally we try to have a minyan in shul when we light the menorah in shul. But when it's Friday, let's say, especially if we have mincha early or whatever, so there may not be necessarily 10 people in shul at the time, and it's getting close to Shabbos, and so he says light the menorah without 10 people. It's not crucial to have 10 people when you light the menorah for a public menorah, so long because people will be passing by, they'll come later, so it's not crucial to have a minyan. It's preferable, but it's not crucial to have a minyan when you light the menorah. So he'll light the menorah outside. Because of COVID, he won't make a special time for people to gather, but people will pass by, Eden and Havdil Nicht Eden, and that's okay. You could make a bracha on that. Okay, let's move on. Someone's asking, is pomace, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, is pomace oil, olive oil, equally acceptable for the menorah? So I want to say very simple that we're talking now clearly in the area of Hidur Mitzvah, because you can light the menorah with wax candles, you can light menorah with paraffin, whatever it may be. You can light with various fuels, but there's a preference to use olive oil because that was it was used in Beis Hamikdash. So we have here a Mishnah. This is a Mishnah in Menachos. There's 3 types of olives, and each one produces 3 types of olive oil. And you got the first olive is Megaga Berisha Zayis from the top of the tree, so it's well exposed to the sun. You squeeze it, you push it aside of the basket, and then we have the next one, Toan Bakoiro. You put on weights of a beam or stones, and then that's the second quality. And then Choza B'Tochan B'Toa. And then the third thing is if you grind it to produce oil, that's the third quality. And then it goes through all the different levels of quality of olive oil. First of the first, second of the first, the different levels of where the olives grow. At the top of the tree, middle of the tree, bottom of the tree, more exposure to the sun, less exposure to the sun. So these produce different qualities of olives, and therefore different quality oil. And the one which is only produced after crushing is the least quality. The pomace oil, apparently, from my reading of up on it, is that it's produced by a chemical reaction. They put in some kind of chemicals into the, I don't know what the word in English is, but it's like the dregs equivalent of making wine. Here it's from oil. They squeeze out olives and they add some kind of chemical, and that stimulates that the oil should flow out. So it's not top quality olive oil. It's the least quality olive oil. It is valid, but if you want to say if it's muhuder, no, it's not the best muhuder. It's the least muhuder amongst olive oils. Mr. Odd is adding here that he wouldn't use pomace oil for food purposes. As I just mentioned, there are chemicals, and you're mentioning that it might be carcinogenic, which obviously wouldn't be a good idea to put in your salad. Okay, so that's the pomace oil. Let's move on then. So I'm not there yet. Okay. Right. Very, very important point. And that is the question of a question of muksa. Because Chabad minhag, not only Chabad, many Chassidim have the minhag to light the menorah dafka on the other side of it. It says in the Gemara that the Gemara Midrashim that you have the mezuzah bimin, menorah be mismoil, mezuzah be mean, and balabayis is be'emtza, and his mesuva b'mitzvahs. There's an emphasis of having the menorah on the opposite side of the mezuzah. I had the privilege of learning with the late Rav Padve, Zechron Levrocha. I once went to him Chanukah. He lived on Keslev Road, I don't remember which number it was, but he had where the room where you learned, which was the back room. There's a doorway which kind of went to a balcony which overlooked the garden, and he put his menorah there, at that doorway, which was no one could see it, not even from the gardens. But he would follow the same as Arminik, that to light the menorah in the doorway rather than by the window. There's a famous answer of the Rebbe about why we don't light the menorah in the window. There was the Rosh Hashiva in Torah Vodas, Reb Moshe Ber Rivkin, Rebel Rivkin, and he lived on the corner of Eastern Parkway and Brooklyn Avenue, in that big building. He lived over there, and the Rebbe passed by and he sees how his menorah is in the window, and the Rebbe says, writes to him, whatever, but it's published. One of the reasons why we don't light in the window, if you have the more old style menorahs, which would be with a back. So the back would be, if you light the menorah, it can be visible in the window, it's not visible to the inside. He gives a couple of reasons, but the simplest reason is we want to keep to lighting the doorway. So that's the minhag in any case. I'm not going to go into the details now, but the question has become for Shabbos. Especially if you've got toddlers in the house. What I did see is that even if you have a doorway which doesn't have a door, and therefore the mezuzah there is not, according to everyone, according to the Rambam, you don't need to have a mezuzah if there's no door. But for as far as this is concerned, it's okay to have the menorah in such a doorway. I have my house, I have a doorway between the kitchen and the dining room. There's no door there. And we have the menorah over there on the opposite side of the mezuzah. The question is, what happens on the Friday night if it is in the doorway and you've got little children and you're worried about moving it? You're worried about them bumping into it, etc. Or you worry because you want to close the door. It's getting cold. It's in this time of the year. It is sometimes a little cold. So we all know there's a concept of bosses l'dover ha'osu omuta. We know that we put the challahs on the table so that they should be there at the onset of Shabbos as well as the candlestick, so that in case you want to move the table, you should be allowed to, because it's a bosses of dover ha'osu omuta. So when you've got on the same surface a davar ha'osu, a davar ha'muter, then the surface does not become muksa. It's not so poshut. There's several factors which one has to take in consideration. First of all, when we say you want to move the table, and you're allowed to move the table because it's got the candlesticks and it's got the challah. Why are you moving the table? Because you want to use the table. Here, why do you want to move the table or the chair, whatever it may be? Because you want to protect the menorah. You want to protect. So then the purpose is there. Normally it's for the motive is a davar hamuta. Here the motive is lechera davar ha'osu. Second point is that when you've got challahs at the table is for eating. So all right, so then the challahs are at least as important at the table as the candlesticks are. But here you've got a little table just for the menorah. The fact that you put a little challah, that no one's going to eat at that little table. They're not going to eat the challah at the table. So that doesn't really become a dominant factor or to counterbalance the menorah. Now the next thing is that when we talk about bosses davar ha'osu muta, what's important is that the davar hamuta has to be of equal or greater value. Value doesn't necessarily mean money. Has to be of greater importance than the davar ha'osu, which is interesting because challahs. So normally we say in Shulchan Aruch that you need to you have the flame and the challahs. What's the muksa? The muksa is the flame. So what would you prefer? To have a flame and go hungry, or to have challahs in the dark? You have that choice. I think I would go for to have my sandwiches in the dark. That's so between flames, between light and challahs. So the chal. But you know what? My candlesticks, I bought them a long time. Yeah, my wife's candlesticks. They're quite expensive. I think if it's be $700, I think I'd skip supper for $700 or $1,000. So I'm looking now, instead of looking at the flames, the candlesticks. Then the candlesticks, which are looking in Shulchan Aruch, they were simple things, clay candlesticks or whatever. They weren't expensive, delicate items. One uses them for other things also, as a little container for trinkets. Our candlesticks, our expensive candlesticks, we wouldn't use them for anything else. So I think they come under the gather of muksa machmas chasor kiss. So they are a big muksa. So you have to counterbalance not only the candles, the flames, but you have to counterbalance the candlesticks also. Well, so you're going to put something down. And then what are you going to put down? Let's say you're going to, you know what? You're going to put down on your little menorah tray, you're going to put down a milchamaydiv. Oh, the milchamaydiv is going to be the counterbalance. You know, in my house, I've got about 75 milchamaydivs. For Hashem, souvenirs, for bar mitzvahs, chasnas. It's a double choshev. Of course, it's got holy words in it, but to say that it's got a counterbalance to the presence of the menorah, so the putting something, and I'm saying this also because it's also relevant for the people pick up the Shabbos tray, the candlesticks by putting a candy on the tray, which is very, very questionable because of what I've just said. Does it? Why are you moving it? And does the thing that you put on it, does it counterbalance? I was brought up with the never movement, just saying they stay there for the whole of Shabbos. At any rate, so moving the menorah with the table, because you put a dover heter, is highly questionable. And I would say simply instead do moving it kilachayat. Move the table. If you need to move it out of the way, move it, push it with your foot slowly, move it out of the way in a safe place. Do it kalachayad, and that's permitted. Muksa, it may be moved kalachayad. That's the simplest solution which I can come up with. Okay, let's move on. Another Hanukkah question. Two people asked me. One fellow called me up. He has a balabos who's traveling to Thailand. Middle of Hanukkah, he bought tickets and he's traveling to Thailand with the family for holiday. After all this lockdown, as you say, I can't forgive them and to want to go on a holiday. But he didn't realize it's the middle of Hanukkah. He's leaving the town. He's leaving about 12 o'clock by day, 11 o'clock by day till he gets to the airport, etc. He arrives in Thailand, let's say 7 o'clock in the morning. So there's no air. And I don't think Thai Air appreciate people lighting menorahs on their, in the kitchen there or something. I don't think that's going to work. And someone else called me again. His son is in America, in Detroit, whatever. Coming once he has able to come home for a few days for Hanukkah. Brought the ticket during Hanukkah. So he's traveling from Newark Airport. The flight is at 5 p.m. He's going to arrive in Europe. He's going to arrive in the morning. So what's he going to do about menorah? So in Newark, I asked to try and find out. Perhaps there's a shul in Newark. He could get a minyan, or even if not, in the shul they might have facilities to light a menorah, which is self-questionable, but fine. But this fellow going to Thailand. So then the question is like this. It says in the Gemara a story about someone who was in Germany, who was married, and he was in yeshiva away from home. And he says he doesn't need to participate in the menorah lighting here because back home his wife is lighting. So I'm looking into the question like this. So someone is traveling from Ukraine to Thailand for a vacation. How about if he asks a neighbor of his, a friend of his, do me a favor, and listen this time, go to my house, here's the key, you light my menorah in my house, my window, whatever it may be, light my menorah for my money, for my oil, and do it on my shlichus. Is there any value in that? So you have in the Gemara, it says his wife lit the menorah for him. So there's a sefer specializing in hilchos traveling. It's called Ahalech Ba Mitecho. It's written by Rebbe Tzal Stern. who wrote the Shayas HaTshuvas, B'Tzel HaChochmah. He was, for a number of years, he was the Rav of the Kehillah in Melbourne. And he was very sensitive to traveling and the complications, especially, dateline and stuff like that, and being in different time zones. He's very, so he specialized in this area. But he takes the view that it does not work to have someone else other than your wife. If someone was staying home and they like your menorah, your yotze. But just to have your menorah lit and you're not there, so you're not yotze with that. Listen, he does not bring any proof to that. So what I would say is, there's no, I mean, there's no chance of them lighting in the plane. If this is going to, this might work, it might not work. Klape Shemaya Galio. So no hard and fast answer on that. I mean, it can't do any harm if then someone else will light the menorah on their behalf, and this way possibly they're yotze because their menorah has been lit in their premises. All right, let's go to a non. So someone's asked, what should the shul Beis Chabad do to facilitate this person? We're lighting menorah in a, but they're not yotze from the menorah in shul. The Alter Rebbe said in Tanya, which you had a couple of days, that when the chazan goes to the Yomid and says Kedusha, so the Omshe Besoda say yotze Kedusha. But I don't know whether they yotze menorah. If they don't see a menorah, I don't think they can be yotze without seeing a menorah. If there is, as I said, back to this in Newark, if there was a place where there's a public menorah in Newark, at least there could be yotze, what we said before, the idea of seeing a roya ner Chanukah, even though there's no one's yotze their choivas gavro because it's not their house, but at least they can be seeing a ner Chanukah. But if they're on the plane, and unless we make such a big menorah that they can see it from the planes. Okay, lass mir gehen weiter. Someone asks the following question, not a Hanukkah question: gluten-free crumpets. So, as you see, it's got here, it's Warburton's, which is a national company. It's not a Jewish company. It does have LBD, I think. And as we know, the LBD doesn't necessarily cover for the questions of Bishul Akum. So therefore, they're asking the question, is it a question of Pas Yisrael or Pas Akum, etc.? This was the question. So I was curious, you say it's gluten-free. What grain is used here? So it's apparently they use rice or maize. They use other grains, not from the Chameshes Mini Dagon. So therefore, it's clearly in Shulchan Aruch that this does not come under the gather of Pas Akum, because it's not made from those grains. But the story doesn't stop there. The question is, what about Bishul Akum? In other words, the halacha of Pas is more lenient than the halacha of Bishul. So, for example, the concept of Pas Palter, the fact that it's made by a commercial baker, is permitted by bread. It's not permitted by according to most poskim. It's not been permitted by other things. The reason for that might be that bread is a staple, much more of a staple than baked beans or cooked potatoes. Bread is more of a staple, and perhaps because of that, the Chachamim allowed us to use Pas Palter, but they didn't make that concession. It could also be that cooking involves more ingredients, bread is a more simple product, whatever the reason may be. But there are greater concessions in halacha for Pas than there are for Bishul. So having confirmed that there's no problem of Pas because it's not made from any of those 5 grains, we still have to deal with, is it subject to Bishul Akum? The rules of Bishul Akum are, there's 2 main rules. It has to be something which is inedible raw, and it has to be something which would be served at a fancy do. It's Oila al shulchan melochim lelafes es hapas. Would it be served as a fancy do? So my little bit of research into crumpets turns out that at least in England it's a chosh of a food, and it wouldn't be out of place to serve crumpets at a fancy do. So then I do see that there is a concern of Bishul Akum. So now let me just see questions over here. Someone's pointing out that LBD have a special mark for Pas Yisrael products. Well, they wouldn't have to mark this. It doesn't need to be Pas Yisrael, but I want to know whether it's called Bishul Yisrael, and that's where I have a problem with this. Okay, the next question is coming back to Hanukkah. Is asking, would electric lights work for Hanukkah? Unfortunately, no, because this is going back to the Beis Yitzchak, who lived in the Rovin Lodge before the war. He talks about electricity. Hanukkah has to be a wick and a oil and the consumption of that form. Electricity is a different type of flame. Electricity is a friction type of fire. It doesn't resemble the menorahs hamikdash. So electric lights, again, for a zeicher, it's a nice zeicher, but it doesn't work. So Gershon's asking, toast in the crumpet, does that help? Unfortunately, I don't think so, because once it's already become roila achila, the fact that you take it afterwards and toast it is not going to undo. Once it's kind of been qualified as a bishul akum, toasting it later is not going to undo that. So, yeah. So I don't have a satisfactory heter for this product. Let's move on. Someone asked me a totally different question, nothing to do with Hanukkah, and that is about may cat litter be switched on Shabbos? So if you have a cat, so now there's a litter, which is where the cat will relieve itself, and then if it's made to absorb the bad smells. But let's say you only realize on Shabbos there's a bad smell. So I would say it is muksa. Cat litter is muksa. But then we have this famous klal, the Godel Kovid Abrius, that a Kovid Abrius, respect for human life, for human dignity, overrides the Isur Rabbanon. So if the presence of the cat litter is offensive to our presence, so we would be allowed to empty it and, if necessary, refill, because otherwise the cat won't, might decide to leave something somewhere else. And therefore, I would remain that lechatchila, no, not to do it on Shabbos, switch it before Shabbos. But if on Shabbos it's in an area where you are using that area and it's bothering you, so then we could rely on the concept of Kovod Abrius to allow you to switch it on Shabbos. Let's go on to the next question, and that was, I'm switching the order. Point 11 was sweeping. A couple of days, last year or 2 years back, we spoke about sweeping and about a broom. That is, sweeping outside is forbidden because you might fill in the cracks. Sweeping indoors is permitted. So then someone's asking, what about if I have an internal tiled floor where there's grout? Is there, there are slight grooves. Is that a problem? So this is from the Aruch HaShulchan, so from Sim Shin Lamed Zayin, it's quoted in the Shmir Shabbos Kilchosa, and he's saying that what we say, Mendel not in here, sorry. No, okay. Says the Ramah, so the Ramah in Simashin Lamed Zayin says the meaning is that it's allowed to do sweeping indoors. We do allow sweeping the floors indoors because our floors are merutzuf. The word rotzuf, which ritzpa is used for a floor, and rotzuf means consecutive. If you have all the floorboards one after the other consecutive, that's a proper floor. Therefore, one cannot make a gezerah. One should not say, "Oh, don't sweep a floor indoors. Perhaps you'll have a floor indoors which doesn't have a proper floor." And then he says, everywhere in normal practice in houses, it's not like the mud huts which had floors made of earth or sand. Our floors are made with floorboards. That's before the carpet, wall-to-wall carpet. Don't worry, no difference whether it's wood or wood floorboards or stone tiles. V'lo chashinan la'afsokos shebein even le'even. We don't have to worry about the little gaps between one tile and the next. The le'inyan kibud leko chashash zeh. When it comes to sweeping, to say that you're going to do sweeping to fill up that crack, those types of cracks, that's not an issue. Because the space between one tile and the next is so minimal. Therefore, you don't have to worry about it. So here you have very clearly the question. The good question was asked by the Aruch HaShulchan, and he says in indoor floor, even if there are slight gaps between the tiles, but that's not an issue to worry about. Let's go on then. Let's go on to the question 10. I'm going in the slightly wrong order, about is there a worry of coloration, of coloring, when it comes to using a tea bag? So I was brought up that you prepare tea essence before Shabbos, and you have a little chainik, you have a little kettle. We had actually a ceramic one which sat on top of the urn, and that was prepared before Shabbos. So I just follow minig avoisai and prepare tea essence before Shabbos. But I know many people don't do that, and they rely on using a kli shlishi. And then someone's asking about the coloring of the bag, and so you can have coloring from tea. It can be a fruit tea, so it's a more colorful, more attractive color. Is that an issue? So here, what we have in front of you on the screen is from the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch. It's from Simon Shein base, and it's in the Kuntras Achron, and he's saying here the following: the dover she'ein derech ha'olam letzoyve oi ein boy mishum tzoyveya amuter lechatchila. A rag which people don't normally color, don't dye it to change its color, is not a worry of wiping your hands and coloring it. Let's skip the next piece. He says, if you'd say, so there is mention in Shulchan Aruch about if a person's got a cut, about using a cloth which is going to be colored by the blood. So the Alter Rebbe says here, you have it in Isha Shapir Sonido b'Shabbos, and it says it should be also for her to place a much, to place a cloth there to absorb the bleeding. The Isa of Tzeveya, like you're not allowed to put a beged, a garment on a wound, on a bako to absorb. But the Bes Yosef clearly in Siman Shin Gimel talks about putting such a pad in place to absorb the bleeding. Tosfos has discussion whether it can go out with the pad to the street. But no one's worried about severe, about coloring the pad. The reason must be mishum detnan muchsheskino lenidoso. It's been designated for absorbing the bleeding. Hainu shemuyuchid lekach. Uadin lemshameres linyan libon. So the Alter Rebbe lays down here a cloud. But if it's something which is miyuchid for this purpose of getting soiled in use, then you don't have to worry about coloration. And so therefore the tea bags are meyuchid for making tea, and afterwards you throw them out, and therefore one doesn't have to worry about the coloring of the tea bag. That's what I managed to find so far. Okay, let's go on to the next question, which is a child born bein hashmoshes. A child is born, the word bein hashmoshes in English is translated twilight. Twilight means between the two lights. In between the lights, you've got the light of the day, which is the sun, and then after the sun sets, a little while later, the stars are visible. The moon, the beginning of the month is even visible before sunset. The end of the month, the moon is visible in the morning, but not earlier in the evening, in the early evening. Anyway, that's what Ben Hashmoshes is. The Shamash means the servant. The sun is a servant by day. The moon and the stars are the Shamoshim by night. And Bein Hashmoshes, you've got this time between, which is Sofek Yom, Sofek Laila. We're not sure whether it belongs to the day, doesn't mean whether it belongs to the night. And the child is born then. So now we've got this question about celebrating a birthday, which is not really a major halacha question. It's a celebration. But still, we want to have guidance halacha. So the important birthday will obviously be the bar mitzvah. So now the question would be, in Chabad the minig is that a boy starts wearing tefillin 2 months before the bar mitzvah. But some kehillas, they wait mamash till the day of the bar mitzvah. So now, if he's born into twilight, between Yotes and Chav Kislev, not this year, yeah? So then, does he start filling on Yutes? So the Mishnah Berurah in Siman Hey, because Siman Hey, why is it in Siman Hey? It's not Hilchos Bar Mitzvah. Siman Hey is about Tefillah B'tzibur, what constitutes a minyan. So it talks there about a child becoming Bar Mitzvah. So there Mishnah Berurah says, when you have this as a suffix, so you'd have to go to Chumrah, which means you'd have to say that the boy should wear tefillin the day before. Because even though it's only misofik, but you have to start the day before. And therefore, coming back to this question also with birthdays, so one would have to celebrate the birthday the day earlier rather than the day later. Two points which connected to this. Very often people ask about a yortzeit. The end of life could also be sometimes on the Shvissen, but it could be also Ben Hashmoshes. And there also I follow the view, again, as discussed in Poskim, that to take the earlier of the two, the earlier of the day rather than the later day. And there it's a simple logic, which is because the Inyan of Zikaron, the Nifter is waiting to be remembered. It shouldn't be that the day has passed and the Nifter is saying, why didn't they remember me? So if it's a day earlier, it's okay. If it's a day later, then there can be that someone over there has been worrying, why haven't they remembered me? Okay, one more point, which is, I think, a very important point. The moment of birth. So they tell you in the hospital the baby was born on this and this time. What exactly is called birth? They are saying, when they're not sure exactly how they define, but halacha, once the baby has put his head out of the cervix, is that Yatzeroshai is already called born. Some poskim want to say, even if the cervix is so dilated that you can see the head, might also be considered already in Noilad. Now that makes a massive difference. If a baby is born, let's say on Friday evening, even let's say 10 minutes after Ben, I'm throwing numbers, yeah, shortly after Ben Hashmoshes. You say it was born after Ben Hashmoshes, it's born Shabbos, you have to make Shabbos bris. Before you rush to do that, consider perhaps the baby was considered born a little bit earlier, 10 minutes earlier, perhaps 15 minutes earlier. So although the report is saying the baby was born 10 minutes after Ben Hashmoshes, it might be la halacha the baby was actually considered to have been born earlier, and that would mean the baby was born on Friday or Chash Friday, and then you might be very similar to making the bris on Shabbos. So therefore, I wouldn't rush to paskin on such a thing. So, and coming back to the birthdays, so following this approach, it looks like when you have a baby born Ben Hashmoshes, one should actually consider the first of the 2 days, of the two options. The earlier one should be the day of celebration. Let's go for our last question which we have today, and that is coming back to we discussed last week about the minhag of adding water to the wine, mezigas hayayin. So apparently Rabbi Zelikson had spoken about this, and he sent me where his quote was from. So this is a sikha from Tofshin Lamed Zayin, as you can see, and it's talking about the Rebbe's Ha'oros and the Zohar. The Rebbe would be discussing the regular Farbrengens, the notes of his father, Reb Leivik, on the Zohar, 2 volumes of the Lev Yitzchak, and they would speak about them, and that's how he was Mekai in the Inn of Kibbutz Av. And so it talks about the Zohar of Loi Lo, and Loi as in Aleph, and Loi with a Vav, and Lo. And then he says, so I'm just going to focus on the piece which is relevant to us now. The Noch is der Inyan from Vayove Lo Yain Vayesh. So that's last week's Sedra. Yaakov brings the wine to Yitzchak and to drink. And the Zohar says that this has got to do with the Inyan of Zoh. And it says in the Zohar that Yaakov brought the wine already blended. It was already blended with water. And it wasn't wine which was chai, which was raw, neat. Because yain mozik, wine which is diluted, has got the mila, has got the advantage over wine which is neat. As we see in the halachas of Kiddush, that there's an advantage of using diluted wine. this is the inyan of yain mozuk, the wine which is being blended with water, is the idea of tiferes. So you have a combination of chesed and gevura, and comes together is inyan of tiferes. Bees to the minion from gvuras mumatokes, of the inyan of gevura, which has been sweetened and been tempered, etc. So the Rebbe spoke about this, but as I mentioned last week, what we could see, I mean, someone wanted to suggest that the bit of wine which is left in the cup, because you rinse the cup. The little bit of wine which is left in the cup serves to dilute the wine. Is I think I'd say it would be first to have the wine and then to add the water. It seems it mentions about adding water by Noida Lecha. But we saw by the Rebbe, they brought the cup to the Rebbe, and he took a tissue, a napkin in American, and he wiped it from the inside and the outside, and then he left it on the table for Rabbi Mentlik alav shalom, and then Rabbi Mentlik would pour in the wine. We never saw the Rebbe adding any wine any water to the wine. So as I said last week, it could be that mentioned Shulchan Aruch that our wine is actually better without diluting. It could be another thing that maybe already wine added in the production. Lepoil in Chabad we haven't seen this minute. Others, everyone Kanara and Ara Pashte, each one follows them in the Mendel Safin is pointing out that this inyan of Mizigas Hayan is in this week's Torah. Right. And Reb Gershon is pointing out that old wine was like liquor, which was a very strong, which needed diluting, whereas the modern wine is much more mild, and therefore it doesn't need to be diluted. I just want to finish off. I've got another minute or so. I had a phone call from a person who some of you might recognize. He lives in Israel, Nachas HaChabad, and he's been struggling financially for many, many years. He's been here several times, come Purim time, other times of the year, and he's been served a notice of eviction of his house in Nachlas HaChabad. He's just pleading to help him out. So anyone who does want to contribute to help him. So you have Rebbe Lezer Kesselman, who lives on Elm Park Avenue, number 8 Elm Park Avenue, or Reb Shmuel Chaim. They are in contact with him, and they would accept any money which be given to them. They will send on to help him to relieve him from his current predicament. And wish you all a Shana Tova, B'Toyas Chassidus, V'Limud Chassidus, Gasev V'Chasemu, Chassidus Yidden, and have Chassidus Shanachas from our children and from our families, and a little bit from ourselves also, and the rebels of uns haben Nachas. And so I wish you all Svaduyas Peilos. We now in half an hour is starting the Inspire conference, and Bez Hashem will hear from the Shluchim in Oslo and in Helsinki and in Copenhagen. So this year we have the Scandinavian taste for our Farbrengen, and I'm sure everyone will find it very inspiring. So I'm going to leave you time to Oiston die Levushim, Onton Jenen Levushim. So a gute Woche allemen, and a guten Yom Tov.
Shkoyach, good Yom Tov.
Shkoyach, good Woche.
Shkoyach, good Yom Tov. Thank you very much.
Shkoyach,